Some moments in sports feel ordinary, another snap, another drive, another Sunday. And then there are moments that stop everything. Moments where the air shifts, the crowd rises before they even understand why, and a single decision rewrites the future of an entire franchise. Tonight in Cleveland, that moment arrived, and it didn't come quietly. It came with one throw. Not a routine completion, not a safe checkdown, not a conservative coaching decision meant to protect someone's reputation. No, this was different. This was the kind of throw that demands attention. The kind that forces every analyst, every coach, every fan who ever said he's not ready to sit in silence and rethink everything they thought they knew. Because when Shedeur Sanders stepped under center, something changed. You could feel it before the ball even left his hand. The stadium wasn't just watching, Cleveland was waiting. Waiting for something they've been starved of for decades. Waiting for a spark. Waiting for a leader. Waiting for a quarterback who plays with swagger, confidence, and fearlessness, not just because he wants the job, but because he knows it belongs to him. And whether anyone inside that coaching room wanted to admit it or not, the second the stadium erupted, the battle lines were drawn. This wasn't just a rookie stepping in. This wasn't just a substitute quarterback filling space. This was the moment a franchise that has endured heartbreak, bad contracts, failed experiments, locker room splits, and organizational dysfunction finally saw a glimpse of something they haven't had since the early 90s: belief. But here's the twist. The louder the cheers got, the more uncomfortable the silence became inside the building. Because behind the celebration sits a truth people inside the franchise have whispered for months. Not everyone wanted this to happen. From draft night arguments, to training camp decisions that raised eyebrows, to weeks of first-team reps assigned to someone else, to the constant public messaging that Sanders needed time. If you're enjoying this video and loving the content, don't forget to give us a big thumbs up. It really helps us know what you want to see more of. And why keep all the excitement to yourself? Share this video with your friends, family, or anyone who loves NFL drama. This wasn't just a quarterback controversy. This was a power struggle. A tug-of-war between the people who believed Sanders was the future, and the people determined to prove he wasn't ready. Yet all of that, every rumor, every hesitation, every blocked opportunity, collapsed under the weight of that one moment. One throw, one touchdown, one eruption of 70,000 voices making something very clear. Cleveland didn't just watch a rookie play football tonight. They watched the beginning of a takeover. And suddenly, everyone, from the locker room to the coaches, offices to the ownership suite, has the same question on their mind. Was this a fluke? Or the moment the Cleveland Browns finally found their quarterback? Because after tonight, the argument, the doubt, the hesitation, it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters now is this. Shedeur Sanders didn't just step onto the field. He announced himself. And the NFL felt it. Long before the stadium chants, before the highlight throw, before Cleveland realized what they had, the story quietly began on draft night, when everything that followed was already set in motion. And if you were watching that night closely, you may have noticed something strange. The room didn't react the way most teams do when selecting a potential franchise quarterback. There was no celebration, no excitement, no handshake parade on camera. Instead, there was tension. A pause. A look between front office and coaching staff that said more than any press conference ever could. Because the truth is, this pick wasn't unanimous, not even close. Rumors swirled immediately. Some insiders claimed the front office pushed aggressively to take Sanders, convinced they saw something special, intangibles, leadership, a competitive fire that can't be coached. Others believed ownership saw more than just a quarterback. They saw marketability. They saw a cultural shift. They saw someone who could finally give Cleveland a face of the franchise. But the coaching staff, reports suggest they saw something different. A risk. A distraction. Someone who didn't fit their system. Whispers started leaking out. He needs time. He's not NFL ready. Fifth-round talent, development project. But behind closed doors, the conversation was different. According to multiple sources, the debate wasn't about talent, it was about control. Sanders played with confidence, swagger, and independence. He wasn't the type to just run a script quietly and stay out of the spotlight. He demanded respect. He carried himself like a leader before ever taking a snap. And for some coaches, especially those already committed to Dylan Gabriel, that confidence wasn't welcome, it was threatening. So while analysts on TV insisted Cleveland got a value pick, something bigger was happening. The organization wasn't united, it was split. On one side, ownership, marketing, and analytics departments. They saw potential, they saw upside, they saw a future. On the other, the coaching staff. They already had their quarterback, they had their structure, they had their plan, and Shedeur Sanders wasn't part of it. The public statement after the draft sounded polished and diplomatic. We believe in competition. We believe Shedeur will develop at the right pace. There's no rush. But behind those words sat a silent promise many around the league recognized instantly. He wouldn't be given anything. He would have to take it. Draft night didn't just bring in a quarterback. It lit the first fuse in what would become the most polarizing storyline in Cleveland sports. A coaching staff protecting their system versus a front office betting on raw potential and undeniable star power. No one knew it then, but that quiet tension, the awkward smiles and the controlled body language, was the first sign that Sanders wasn't being drafted to fit in. He was being drafted to challenge everything. And the franchise was officially divided. Every NFL story has a pivot point, a moment when everything shifts. For the Baltimore Ravens and Shedeur Sanders, that moment didn't happen during a press conference, a practice, or even on draft night. It happened under the lights, on a night when the league was watching, critics were circling, and pressure was thicker than the Baltimore humidity. The Ravens walked into that game carrying weight. The fan base was divided. The media had an agenda, and the entire NFL was wondering if Baltimore had just wasted one of the most valuable draft decisions in franchise history. Shedeur heard every word, every doubt, every critique, every insult disguised as analysis. But that night, something shifted. Baltimore wasn't just playing a game, they were testing a theory. Was Shedeur Sanders built for the NFL, or was he just another college hype story that wouldn't translate? From the opening snap, the energy felt different. The stadium wasn't chanting, it was waiting. You could feel the skepticism. But what nobody expected was the calm in Shedeur's eyes. No panic, no hesitation, just control, the kind only the greats have. The defense collapsed the pocket early. A normal rookie would have forced a throw or taken a bad sack. But Shedeur, he slid, reset, found his second read, fired, first down. The crowd didn't cheer, it reacted. Heads turned. People leaned forward. Analysts stopped typing. Something clicked. This kid wasn't just surviving, he was dictating. Then came the play. The one that changed the tone, not just of the game, but of the season, the franchise, maybe even the league. A broken play, pressure exploding up the middle, a defender with a free run. Any quarterback, even veterans, would have thrown it away. Shedeur didn't. He stepped into the hit, trusted his timing, and unleashed a 40-yard strike, placed perfectly between two defenders, right into the hands of a receiver who didn't even have to break stride. The stadium didn't cheer, it erupted. The sideline went from debating to believing. Coaches who were hesitant suddenly stood. Veterans who weren't sold started nodding. And in that moment, the Baltimore Ravens stopped talking about potential and started talking about future. After the play, the camera zoomed in on Shedeur. No celebration, no flex, no trash talk. Just that same calm stare, the one that said, "I knew, now you know." That single moment forced the NFL to rewrite the narrative. The media pivoted, critics softened, opponents took notice. Baltimore didn't just find a quarterback, they found their identity. And that was the night everything changed. Inside every NFL locker room, there are unwritten rules. Respect isn't handed out, it's earned. Leadership isn't titled, it's taken. And chemistry isn't automatic, it's built through moments of adversity, conflict, and truth. For the Baltimore Ravens, the arrival of Shedeur Sanders didn't just introduce a new quarterback. It introduced a question the organization couldn't avoid anymore. Who was this team going to be? Before Shedeur's breakthrough game, the locker room was divided into 3 clear groups. There were the veterans, players who believed success was earned through years in the league, not through headlines, college highlight reels, or famous last names. They respected Shedeur's pedigree, but respect and trust are 2 different currencies in the NFL. Then there were the young guys, players who came from the new era of football, the nil generation, the social media wave, and the cultural shift that Shedeur represented. To them, he wasn't an outsider. He was a symbol of where the league was already heading. And finally, there were the undecided, the silent majority, the ones waiting for proof. Before that defining performance, the locker room wasn't hostile, but it wasn't unified. You could feel the tension in conversations, in sideline interactions, in who gravitated toward who. Some players wondered if Shedeur was just being given the team before he'd earned it. Others were already convinced he was the missing spark the franchise desperately needed. But after that game, everything changed, not because he made plays, but because of what happened after. When Shedeur walked back into the locker room, there was a quiet before the reaction, a moment where every player watched him, judging, measuring, waiting. He didn't shout, he didn't boast. He didn't point at critics or say, "I told you so." Instead, he walked to the middle of the room and said just one sentence. "If we're gonna win, we gotta win together, not in sides." And then he paused, not for effect but for accountability. Veterans looked at him differently, not as Shedeur Sanders' son, not as a rookie quarterback, not as a media figure, but as a leader. The room responded not with applause but with commitment. Helmets tapped, fists bumped, conversations shifted from doubt to preparation. That was the moment the divide stopped being a problem and instead became a decision point. Every player had to ask themselves, were they holding onto the past or ready to build the future? Slowly, and then suddenly, the answer became clear. The Ravens weren't playing for a system anymore. They weren't playing for tradition. They weren't playing to protect the old way. They were playing with Shedeur and for each other. The split didn't destroy the team. It forced them to choose a direction. And they chose forward.
If you enjoyed today's breakdown and want to keep up with all the drama, trades, and behind-the-scenes action in the NFL, then don't forget to hit that like button.
For most franchises, changing quarterbacks is routine, a depth chart adjustment, an injury substitution, a strategic pivot. But in Baltimore right now, this moment feels different. It feels seismic. It feels like the kind of moment historians circle when they're explaining how everything changed. Because what's unfolding isn't just a personnel decision. It's the reshaping of identity, culture, and control inside a franchise that's always prided itself on structure and hierarchy. For years, the Ravens have operated under a predictable philosophy: experience over hype, system over improvisation, stability over spectacle. Coaches coached, veterans led, rookies waited. That was the formula. That was the unwritten law. But Shedeur Sanders has disrupted that ecosystem in real time, not through politics, not through public pressure, but through undeniable performance, through moments that cannot be unseen, through throws that change opinions in seconds, not seasons. Players feel it, coaches feel it, the front office feels it, the league feels it. And that's where the shift becomes something bigger than football. Because when a rookie becomes the center of gravity, when veterans block harder, receivers run sharper routes, and fans show up louder because of one player, the system adjusts itself. Not because it chooses to, but because it has no other option. That is the power of momentum. That is the power of belief. That is the power of a quarterback who doesn't just play the position, he represents possibility. There's a growing reality Baltimore can't ignore. The locker room doesn't rally behind depth chart rankings, it rallies behind leadership. And leadership isn't assigned. It's earned. It's shown in the huddle when the stadium is shaking. It's shown in the silence between snaps. It's shown when the team is down and every eye looks to one person, waiting to see who flinches first. Shedeur hasn't flinched once. And that's where the conflict begins. Because the coaches still have structure. The front office still has contracts. The franchise still has timelines and plans and roadmaps drawn up long before Sanders ever stepped on an NFL field. But momentum doesn't care about plans. The fans don't care about old charts. The players don't care about projections or hypotheticals. They care about what they see, and what they've seen is a quarterback with the poise of a veteran and the fire of someone with everything to prove. So now, the question isn't whether he's ready. It's whether the organization is. Because once a fan base believes in a quarterback, once a locker room follows him, once a city rallies behind him, the power shifts permanently. You can delay it, you can resist it, but you cannot stop it. This isn't just about who starts next Sunday. It's about who leads the franchise into the next era. And the era is already knocking, loudly. No speeches, no meetings, no announcements, yet everyone in the building can feel it, the shift, the unspoken energy, the quiet but unmistakable realignment happening behind closed doors. Because in the NFL, loyalty isn't declared, it's revealed in the way players walk, talk, and respond when the moment demands truth. And right now, the truth is this. The Ravens' locker room is leaning toward Shedeur Sanders. Look closely, not at the press conferences, not at the stat lines, but at the body language. When Sanders walks into the room, players turn. When he steps into the huddle, helmets tilt forward. When he speaks, the room listens, not because they have to, but because they want to. That's the difference between being the quarterback and being the guy. Teammates aren't saying it out loud, not yet. But you can read it in the subtle ways veterans have shifted their tone. In the way linemen dap him with a different kind of respect after practice. In the way wide receivers run their routes a little sharper, knowing the ball might find them at any second. The way defensive leaders slap him on the helmet after big plays, not as encouragement, but as recognition. Because players know talent when they see it. More importantly, they know momentum when they feel it. And right now, Sanders isn't just another name on a depth chart. He's becoming the gravitational center of the team. Meanwhile, the quarterback he's competing with, the room reacts differently, not disrespectfully, just formally, like a coworker, like someone fulfilling a role, not redefining it. And that subtle difference is the beginning of the end in quarterback battles. Because once belief shifts, there's no forcing it back. The veterans, the ones who have played long enough to recognize rare energy, are sending signals without speaking. A look to the sideline after a big throw, a nod during walkthroughs, a simple, 3-word phrase said quietly but with conviction. He's got it. And that phrase spreads, first in whispers, then in confidence, eventually in expectation. Coaches may delay change. Front offices may weigh contracts and PR fallout. But players only care about one thing, who gives them the best chance to win right now. And Sanders has given them a taste of something dangerous, hope. Hope that drives harder practices. Hope that keeps morale high. Hope that makes men believe Sundays can be something more than survival and execution. They can be domination. So even if the depth chart hasn't changed, the decision already has. Because in the NFL, quarterbacks aren't chosen on paper. They're chosen in the heart of the locker room. And that choice has been made. Silently, powerfully, irreversibly. Shedeur didn't just walk into the building. He shifted the gravitational pull of the entire organization. Before he arrived, everything in the franchise felt predictable, structured, safe, the kind of environment where decisions were made based on charts, scouting reports, and cautious coaching philosophies. It was a system where the quarterback position wasn't earned through presence or momentum, it was assigned through planning. And then Shedeur Sanders showed up. The moment he walked through the doors, things changed, not loudly, not aggressively, but undeniably. There's a rare kind of confidence certain athletes carry, the type that doesn't need to be spoken or sold. It's the difference between someone trying to prove they belong and someone who already knows they do. And from day one, Shedeur carried himself like the latter. It wasn't arrogance, it was clarity. He shook hands differently. He studied film differently. He practiced differently. And most importantly, he made everyone around him feel different. Coaches noticed it before the media did. Teammates felt it before the public caught on. The organization sensed it before they were ready to admit it. Players began staying after practice when he stayed. Receivers who once ran routes mechanically suddenly started running them with urgency because there was a real chance the ball would find them. Offensive linemen blocked with more intensity, not because someone demanded it, but because they finally believed it mattered. Even the facility itself seemed to react. Meetings were sharper. Energy in the weight room was louder. There was excitement, the kind teams don't get from strategy or depth chart placements, but from the belief that something bigger might be starting. And the front office, the same one that once hesitated, began paying attention to things they can't quantify on spreadsheets: momentum, chemistry, electricity. Ownership noticed the shift too, not because someone briefed them, but because they could feel it when they walked the halls. Hope isn't subtle, it hums in the background like a frequency only winning teams recognize. Suddenly, the quarterback conversation wasn't about who was next. It was about how long the franchise could hold off the inevitable. Because Shedeur didn't just compete for a role. He rewrote the environment around it. Leadership meetings began including questions that didn't exist before. What happens if we start him sooner? What message does it send if we do? What if momentum matters more than schedule? That's what gravitational shift looks like, not chaos, but reorientation. Before Sanders, the organization operated around a system. Now, the system is starting to operate around him. And once that kind of shift begins, there's only one possible ending. Not if, not when, but how long the franchise can resist before the future takes over. Every NFL era is marked by a turning point, a moment when a franchise must decide whether it will cling to what's familiar or step boldly into something uncertain, risky, and possibly historic. For the Ravens, that moment isn't coming. It already arrived the second Shedeur Sanders walked into the building. What makes this story different is just talent. The league sees talented rookies every year. Some shine, some crumble, some fade into the long list of almost. But what Shedeur represents is bigger than stats, highlights, or hype. It's a shift in identity. Baltimore has always been a team built on toughness, defense, and keeping everything behind closed doors. Respect the system, follow the culture, earn your place. That's how it's always been. But Shedeur doesn't just play the game, he challenges the way the game is expected to look. He brings swagger, spotlight, expectation, and pressure. Some players fear that, others embrace it. And the franchise, they're now standing at the crossroads between what has always worked and what might change everything. But here's the wild part. The franchise isn't just deciding whether Shedeur should be QB1. They're deciding whether they're ready to build around him. Because greatness isn't just about one player rising. It's about whether an organization is willing to adapt, evolve, and commit to the vision that comes with that player. History has shown this pattern over and over. Mahomes wasn't Mahomes until Kansas City bet the franchise on him. Lamar was Lamar until Baltimore changed their playbook to fit who he was, not who they expected quarterbacks to be. And Brady, he didn't become the GOAT until New England trusted him more than their comfort zone. So now the question hanging over Baltimore isn't whether Shedeur is talented. That part is already clear. The real question is this: are they willing to let him lead? Because leadership isn't declared, it's allowed. And after the locker room shift, the breakout performance, and the moment he stood in front of teammates and spoke without ego or fear, it became impossible to ignore what was forming. Shedeur isn't just playing football, he's rewriting expectations. He isn't just joining the league, he's forcing it to adjust to him. And whether the Ravens are ready or not, momentum has already begun moving in his direction. Now the franchise faces the same choice players did. Cling to the old structure, or build around the spark that could define the next decade. This decision, isn't just about a quarterback battle. It's about identity, future, culture, and legacy. If the Ravens choose right, this could be the moment fans look back on and say, "That was the beginning." But if they hesitate, someone else will make the choice for them. Because in the NFL, destiny waits for no one.
If you enjoyed today's breakdown and want to keep up with all the drama, trades, and behind-the-scenes action in the NFL, then don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps this channel grow and lets us know you love this kind of content. And hey, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with your friends, your group chats, or anyone who loves football as much as you do. The more the conversation spreads, the better it gets. Most importantly, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel and tap the notification bell. That way, you'll never miss when we drop fresh stories, wild rumors, or breaking updates that the mainstream media won't talk about.